Fox Sports.
We are Black Hawk. We are Florida.
Stanton got a good piece of that. It's deep, and it's gone. Wow! How does he do that? He is so strong. Fernandez, left field. It's deep. It is gone. He got it. The kid in his last game homers to left. We told you to come out. We told you to watch this one tonight. In Miami today, the storm has passed, so to speak. Not the one outside, but the one that was inside Marlins Park. As the Braves and the Marlins finish off a four-game series, the Marlins finally got a win last night, and they did it with the long ball. You just saw two of them, and they did it with a sterling performance by their rookie, Jose Fernandez. So today, Logan Morrison, Chris Johnson, Chris Coughlin will all get together for a friendly game of baseball. Freddie Garcia, Brian Flynn on the mound. Hi, everyone. Rich Waltz along with Tommy Hutton. There's a lot to discuss about last night's ball game. First, let's start with the accomplishment. Lost in all of it, Jose Fernandez may have nailed down the Rookie of the Year award with his performance on the mound.
Yeah, I agree with you, Rich. I think we've gone over and over all the events that happened last night. But when you talk about his performance on the field, you talk about his performance throughout the season. His opposing batting average of 182, his 12 wins, his 187 strikeouts. To me, he is the Rookie of the Year. We'll just have to wait and see.
Of course, that was overshadowed by what happened during the game. The chatter between Fernandez and the Braves, Chris Johnson at third, Evan Gattis, and then the meeting at home with Brian McCann after Fernandez homered. After the ball game, Fernandez met the media.
I feel embarrassed. I feel like I don't deserve to be here because this is in high school no more. This is the professional game, and there should be professional players doing what you're supposed to do, and I don't think that should ever happen. And I'm embarrassed, and hopefully it won't happen again.
You know, the funny thing, Tommy, talking to both Fernandez and both managers and even Brian McCann, when Fernandez got to the plate and McCann met him, Fernandez knew he had messed up, and that was the discussion that was going on.
Yeah, we talked about that at the time, that Brian McCann was trying to be peacemaker, trying to be that veteran guy to say, hey, you just don't do that up here.
And so you move on, and I think both clubs have moved on. All right, here's the pitching matchup as we move on. It's our Coventry Healthcare matchup. It's not one you were expecting in this ball game.
Hey, we move on to a veteran, a 36-year-old veteran, Freddie Garcia, has won 155 games in the major leagues. And Brian Flynn, we saw him make his major league debut in Chicago, Wrigley Field. A little less calm or a little less nerves in this one today. He should be better off. He's looking forward to it.
All right, we're looking forward to it as well. This series finale on an afternoon in Miami. It's the Braves, it's the Marlins. Yeah, there was some drama last night. Craig Minervini, Jeff Conine discuss when we return. four-game series. Let's head out to center field where things have calmed down with Craig Minervini and Jeff Conine. Gentlemen.
Thank you, Rich. Good afternoon again, everybody. Yeah, there were some fireworks here last night, as you know, with Jose Fernandez, who kind of stood on an island and took most of the blame afterward. But there's no question when you look at the video that the Braves stirred the pot here a little bit. And if they don't deserve 50% of the blame, maybe give them at least 25%.
Yeah, there's blame on both sides here. You see Evan Gattis with a little bit of a stare. I didn't think it was that terrible, but Jose Fernandez looked at that and said, hey, you don't need to stare at me after you hit a home run. Chris
Johnson hit one hard. Remember, Chris Johnson now 0 for 6 with a couple of strikeouts against Fernandez. He was chirping all the way down the line, and that was in the top of the 6th. He kept going there, and Fernandez heard it. It was back and forth. So, here we go. Fernandez, wouldn't you know it, would bat for the final time this season in the bottom of the 6th inning.
Yeah, how about this? All right, we'll just cap off with a big giant exclamation point that I'm going to hit a home run, and I'm going to stand there and watch it.
And then his friend Brian McCann had a stern comment for him or two. Chris Johnson came running in, and the brouhaha was on there. And as Freddie Gonzalez said, you want to be playful? They go two ways. Boys will be boys. Is it over right now?
I believe it's over. You heard Jose Fernandez, the post-game press conference last night, say, hey, I made a mistake. He actually face-to-face talked to Chris Johnson, Brian McCann, Freddie Freeman, said, hey, I got caught up in the moment. I shouldn't have watched it. It's over with. It's done. I don't think we're going to see anything.
All right, made a miscue, but let's not ruin the starch of a great season and a great night for him, too. And it took away a little of what you would have liked to see him, is enjoy that moment with the home run and the victory, as he should. Good for you, Jose Fernandez. 12 wins and a potential this season. All right, got the series finale coming up. I don't know. See you in the postgame. Braves and the Fish next.
On Fox Sports Florida is brought to you by Toyota. Let's go places. By AT&T Uverse TV. Check availability. 1-800-PICK-AT&T. Rethink possible. By Just for Men, Mustache and Beard. And by Checkers. B-Star. In Miami this afternoon, ready for some baseball as the Fish and the Braves get ready to go. Here come the Atlanta Braves, owners of the best record in the National League, which is important when you're thinking home field advantage in the postseason. JM Lexus brings it to you. Elliot Johnson's in left field. Justin Upton in right. Freddie Freeman at first. Evan Gattis will hit cleanup and will catch. Chris Johnson in the 5 spot. Andrelton Simmons at short. Freddie Gonzalez trying to get these two bats going. Dan Uggla and B.J. Upton, and Freddie Garcia is hitting ninth. Then Brian Flynn, Tommy Hutton, makes start number 2 in the big leagues.
Well, we saw Brian Flynn at Wrigley Field in Chicago. The former 7th-round draft pick of the Tigers came over in the deal that sent Anibal Sanchez and Omar Infante to Detroit out of Wichita State.
Pinch Penny brings you the first pitch. And it's a fastball for a strike to the switch hitting Elliott Johnson, who's in left field now. A very versatile guy. He has been certainly a big lift to the Braves with the struggles of both Ugla and B.J. Upton. Elliott Johnson picked up from the Royals. Has had big hits and made big plays. But he busts his bat on that ground ball. Echeverria whips it over to first. And this ball game is underway. Here's the defense behind Mr. Flynn.
All right, pick up the pieces of the broken bat. And there's the defense with Chris Coughlin starting in left field. Yelich is in center. Giancarlo into right field. Lucas Echeverria, Solano, and Lomo around the infield. And today's catcher is Rob Brantley, who also came over in that deal from the Tigers.
Now you get into the teeth of the Braves order. You got Justin Upton, Freddie Freeman, Evan Gattis, Chris Johnson all lined up. And Flynn delivers outside. Justin Upton, a couple hits in this series. Last night an 0-for-4 night. Last night a 5-2 win for the Fish, but it was all Atlanta in the first 2 games of the series. The Braves winning 5-2 on Monday. A squeaker, a 4-3 win on Tuesday. And here is Flynn facing the Braves on a getaway day. Both ball clubs headed out of town.
Rich, what we saw in Brian Flynn in Chicago, 6'7". He's a big guy, but he's not a 95-plus fastball thrower. His fastball's in the low 90s, 92, 93. Has a little sink to it. Good breaking ball. He made some mistakes. He got hurt with a couple of home run balls in Chicago. Deanna Navarro and Starlin Castro took him deep.
Owasso, Oklahoma. As you pointed out, Tommy, a shocker. Wichita State. And he is part now of a Marlins rotation that is evolving and changing as the week goes along. 3-1 is outside. Obviously, Jose Fernandez exits the rotation. He'll be shut down for the rest of the year. And of course, what a way to go out last night with another terrific performance on the mound. But as well, Nathan Eovaldi's back has stiffened up, and it may be a week or so before Eovaldi is ready to pitch.
You know, as they say when a player has an injury, they say he's day to day. The Marlins rotation right now is day to day.
Upton's at first. Flynn to the plate, and Freeman makes a fastball for a strike. Freddie Freeman, who has had an MVP type season for Atlanta at first base with his 19 homers, 25 doubles, slugging right around 480. And he shoots that one foul.
And
Counts 0-2.
He's had a solid year, too, against the Marlins.
You know,
over 350.
And the other thing that's impressive about Tommy is he plays every day. I mean, this is a guy, the Braves have had their share of injuries in and out of the lineup, but Freeman has been the constant.
Has had a little bit of a balky knee as well, but he's still in the lineup. That's the thing when you start talking about MVPs. That's part of the deal as well. The same can be said of Andrew McCutchen with the Pirates.
And remember when Freeman, when the Braves did want to slow him down because of a bit of an injury, he was angry that they took him out of the lineup. He's played in 132 games now.
They actually put him on the DL.
I know.
He didn't want to go.
He didn't want to go. He's played in 132 games right now. Andrelton Simmons leads the ball club at 140. And Freeman doing what he does best, a line drive to left, holding second is Justin Upton. That's the hard part about Freddie Freeman, man. That there's really no place you can pitch him and be safe. You watch where the pitch location is and what Freeman does to the ball.
Boy, that's a perfect pitch, an outstanding pitch against lefties. Look at how he approaches that. He just a little half swing to protect the plate. Against lefties, he's hitting around 270, which isn't that bad, and he's over 320 against righties.
Now Evan Gattis, who has enjoyed his stay here, driving in 5 runs in the first 3 games. and doing it with some big-time pop. Yesterday, a long home run against Fernandez in the 6th. Gaddis drove in 2 runs on Tuesday night with a single and a double, and had a 2-run double, a key hit, in the Game 1 win. Smokes that one. Solano knocks it down. Echeverria turns it, and the Marlins turn the double play on a smash off the bat of Gaddis. We're underway and scoreless. And the Marlins lineup on this Thursday afternoon is brought to you by JM Lexus. Chris Coughlin finds himself out in the outfield. Donovan Solano's at second. Christian Yelich. Giancarlo Stanton right behind him. Logan Morrison. And Lucas. Adeiny Echeverria. Rob Brantley. And Brian Flynn.
You know, the Marlins saw a little bit of Freddie Garcia in one of those games in Atlanta. He came out of the bullpen. He actually pitched very well. Garcia came out, went 4 2/3 innings. He doesn't have the fastball that he once had, but he's a big guy. He knows how to pitch. Guy's won 155 career games in the major leagues.
Well, you wonder what happens to ace pitchers when they lose their velocity. Well, Freddie Garcia is a pretty good study and a guy that's figured out how to hang around in the big leagues. Because at one time he was everything that an ace was. A hard thrower, a winner, check swing right back to Garcia, and he underhands it to first to get Chris Coughlin.
Well, a 2-time All-Star. There's a look at the defense, brought to you by Cleveland Clinic. As always, Elliott Johnson, B.J. Upton, Justin Upton in that outfield. Chris Johnson, Andrelton Simmons, Dan Uggla, Freddie Freeman around the infield, and Gaddis moves in behind the plate.
Donovan Solano now. And Solano takes a strike. Solano getting to start at second base. Christian Yelich slotted behind him, with Yelich in center field. And a breaking ball out to Solano.
By the way, what a pick by Solano on that hard hit ball from Gaddis to start that double play.
That appeared to almost knock Solano over. That one fouled off. There was a time, and here's a look at it. I think he was just happy to knock it down, and a terrific turn by Echeverria as you look at it the second time, because he had the runner right on top of him. And that was Freddie Freeman, who made a good hard slide, but Etch got up and over it. Solano calls time. Count 1-2, just underway after last night's highly entertaining matchup between the Braves and the Marlins for a lot of reasons. And that one pulled foul.
Yeah, one of the things I was thinking about today, Rich, and it's it just demonstrates the game of baseball. Here we are, 12, 15 hours later, playing another game. In the NFL, they'd be talking about things for a week before you get the next game. So it's just the nature of this game. Play all the time. You have to put things aside, and you have to get ready for the next game.
We talked about how well Fernandez handled things after the ball game, how well McCann handled things during the game and after the game. But you have to give a lot of credit to Mike Redmond, and you have to give a lot of credit to Freddie Gonzalez, because both managers were very not only decisive but showed great leadership. Redmond and Gonzalez know each other. They spoke after the ball game, and the funny thing is, Redmond called Freddie. There's a bouncer in the hole at short. Simmons a throw to first, to tell him that, hey, the kid's sorry. The kid, apologized. He felt that and Freddie said, hey, he's already come over. Fernandez actually went over to the Braves clubhouse.
Met some guys out in the corridor.
And met some of the Braves players, apologizing to Mike Minor, apologizing to McCann. He's friends with Freeman. So I think after the ball game, as squirrely as it got during the game, the way everybody handled themselves, both on the Braves side and on the Marlins side, was very commendable.
And you and I were talking before the game. We thought the umpires did a good job in kind of deflecting everything and handling the situation as well.
Garcia facing Yelich. Couple hits for Yelich in the series. Freddie Garcia is now a crafty right-hander. If he were left-handed, he would have that affixed to his name. But there was a time where he threw hard, and he was a leader on the mound. As you pointed out, an all-star in Seattle in 2001 and 2002, a big piece of the World Championship White Sox team in 2005. He was a horse. Yelich rolls over on one. Tugla flips it to first in time. Marlins with 3 ground ball outs in the first. With Marlin fans just like you, go to marlins.com/connect. Get a full roster of Marlin players on Twitter, all the official Marlin accounts on Instagram, Twitter, and more. Hashtag Let's Go Fish. Now that's old school right there, social media, reading a game program, maybe bringing the sports page and reading the box scores. But it's pretty cool to do it with the MLB At Bat app on your iPad or iPhone or BlackBerry, whatever you got nowadays. All right, here is Chris Johnson. Obviously, he was involved last night and angry and was in the middle of it, charging from third down towards home plate as McCann and Fernandez
we're discussing Fernandez home run trot.
And I think he's a little on edge because he's seen his lead in the batting race fizzle away. Right now, Michael Kadire at 334, Johnson at 328.
Johnson's had a terrific season, and he has been a huge boost to the Braves at third base. Chipper Jones, of course, retiring. Johnson coming over in the trade with Justin Upton, and look at that. There you got the hitters. Jason Worth is hot too, so don't discount him in the last couple of weeks. And Andrew McCutchen certainly is capable of going on a 2-week bender and pumping his average up in the mid 330s. Counts 2-2. Andrelton Simmons and Dan Uggla will follow. And Johnson smokes one into center field, a base hit. You know, Tommy, the way he has swung the bat all year long, he's got a great shot to win it as well.
Yeah, both these guys, both Kadire and Johnson, the 1-2 guys now, have an opportunity because of the way they swing the bat. It's his third hit this series. He was hitless last night. That two-seamer away, didn't get down and away quite enough. And that's where Chris Johnson likes to go, right back up the middle like that.
Andrelton Simmons now, and then you get into Dan Uggla and B.J. Upton. Brian Flynn walked Justin Upton, gave up a Freeman base hit in the first. Got a loud double play to get out of the inning. Simmons, who has popped, he's hit 15 home runs, has doubled and tripled in the series. That both came last night. Simmons and Adeiny Echeverria are sort of the next generation of National League East shortstops. In the National League East, when Jose Reyes was in New York, Jimmy Rollins was in Philly, Hanley Ramirez was here with the Marlins. The National League East was known for their good shortstops, guys that could do a lot of different things. Flynn's going to get a visit from Rob Brantley here. 3-0 count to Simmons.
Yeah, remember years ago the wave of shortstops were the small athletic guys, the Ozzie Smiths, the Larry Boas, guys who weren't as productive, and you expect Adeiny Echeverria to progress in that area, to get a little more productive, bring his average up. Simmons certainly productive, 15 home runs this year.
Yeah, Simmons a little more advanced offensively, but both shortstops young. Both shortstops can really play defensively. We talked about Simmons and a possible Gold Glove. He'll get consideration. Echeverria will get consideration as well. The 3-1 pitch, and Flynn comes back to run the count full at 3-2.
He has to keep the ball down. He has to have good control. He's not going to overpower hitters, but he does give hitters a unique look, being 6'7".
But he misses, and now he's faced with first and second and nobody out, and he's got two guys who are struggling, but both have the power to hit it out. And the first is Dan Uggla, on deck B.J. Upton.
Well, a key for managers is to try to, especially when you have struggling players, is to try to get them in a situation where you hope that they can succeed. So obviously, Freddie Gonzalez is saying, all right, Dan Uggla, B.J. Upton, I really need you guys in postseason. So here's an opportunity against a young rookie, a left-hander, to try to get your swing down.
Uggla yesterday voiced his displeasure with not being in there, and obviously frustrating for Dan because the only way you can get yourself out of a slump is by playing.
The amazing thing about Uggla's season, where he's been below 200 most of the year, just 158 against left-handed pitching,
which is very un-Uggla-like. His on-base percentage, though, still at 311. He does take his walks, 71 of them, and he fouls it off
So what you're saying is those, and I won't say geeks, those sabermetrics guys would like the year that Dan Uggla's having.
No,
on base percentage.
No, I think they would say he's not producing the way he should be, but at least he's taking his walks and getting on base.
Because a guy like Uggla, you want to look at that slugging percentage column.
Yes, absolutely. That's more important, I think, for Uggla is that slugging percentage, and Uggla slugging at just .370. But his spot has been taken by Elliott Johnson out at second. Evan Gattis has been playing in the outfield instead of B.J. Upton. Swing and a miss, and down goes Uggla. And you're right, Tommy. If Freddie Gonzalez had his choice, he would rather have Uggla and B.J. Upton hot when he got to the postseason.
Because then it gives him Elliott Johnson off his bench, who's very versatile. Good pitch, and Uggla just swings through it.
Phantom cam giving you a good look at that swing by Uggla. All right, now here's B.J. Upton, and he's right along the same lines as Uggla. And both of the Braves, ironically and quite honestly painfully, Upton and Uggla are the two highest paid Braves who both have big contracts. Uggla's in year 3 of a 5-year deal, and BJ is just starting a long-term deal that brought him from the Rays. It's a 5-year, $72 million contract. And so obviously, not only for this year, but the Braves have got to figure it out and get him back on track for years to follow. Into right, Stanton lines it up, makes the catch. Johnson will stop at second and hold there, and Flynn gets Uggla, gets Upton. Now he faces the pitcher in Freddie Garcia.
And you and I saw B.J. Upton in Atlanta, and I think Atlanta Braves fans and Freddie Gonzalez, they were encouraged by what they saw because Upton swung the bat well that series. He had a 4-hit game. He had a big game. But that didn't translate on to more good games. One area where Brian Flynn, if he gets that changeup over and he threw a good one to strike out Uggla, that'll help him too.
Now Garcia. Freddie Garcia spent most of his professional life in the American League, so you can see him with a little bit of a grin right now. This is not something he's accustomed to doing an awful lot of. And that's swinging the bat.
Be careful if you smile too much now on the field.
That's true. You've got to follow protocol today. Everyone's watching.
Hey, 9 times in Freddie Garcia's career, he's won 10 or more games. He's been a solid pitcher. Out of Venezuela.
Like I said, he's a completely different pitcher now than he was, and you give him credit for hanging in there and figuring out how to pitch and how to stay in the big leagues without that high velocity. Flynn ready. Johnson still at second. Simmons at first. And Garcia's out in front. And so for 23-year-old Brian Flynn, a nice escape from a sticky second inning. transmitted any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the Miami Marlins. Rich Waltz along with Tommy Hutton, but those are the important people. The Fox Sports Florida Fan Express happened to stop by the Fox Sports Florida offices in Fort Lauderdale, Tommy, and brought down all of our good friends and bosses. Steve Tello, Brett Updike, John Valek is there. The Fox Sports Florida girls are there. Jamie Shapiro. Everybody from the office getting something to eat, watching some baseball as Giancarlo Stanton steps in and takes a fastball for a strike.
So they're here live. That means they're not at home watching us.
That's right. We can pretty much say whatever we want.
Hey, I just thought you read the disclaimer. You know, you had that great day at Lynn University the other day. Speaking to the students, we should have had one of the students read the disclaimer.
That's a good point. That's a good point. The sports management group at Lynn University are here today as well. And so they're taking a tour of Marlins Park. Watching the Marlins and the Braves, Freddie Garcia. Stanton out in front really pulls it. You have to approach Garcia, don't you, as if you're facing a right-handed Jamie Moyer, a guy that just is going to go slow, and even slower.
Yeah, and we've seen two left-handed hitters, Coughlin and Yelich. They were both out in front, little tappers. And, yeah, you have to stay back. You have to make yourself go the other way. And big shift on the infield for Stanton,
who swings and misses. And Freddie Garcia looks like the same guy that in relief baffled the Marlins in Atlanta.
Yeah, we talked about it. 4 2/3 innings. He gave up just 3 hits, no runs in that appearance, and you've got to make him throw strikes.
Well, that's the thing. A guy like Garcia at 36, who is making his 355th career start, he's not going to throw you a strike unless he has to. I mean, look at that first pitch to Morrison. It's 6-8 inches off the plate.
Well, he came into the game, if you remember, that the left-hander Alex Wood started and gave up a lot of runs. And it was Alex Wood who was supposed to start this game. But the young left-handers faltered a little bit his last couple of starts. So Freddie Gonzalez decided to go with Freddie Garcia.
Both managers had to shuffle the deck. This was to be a Nathan Eovaldi start for Miami. And instead, Brian Flynn moved up. Probably Brad Hand tomorrow night in New York for the Marlins, with Jacob Turner and Henderson Alvarez in that doubleheader on Saturday.
Yeah, the rotation as we look ahead to New York is all TBD, to be determined.
Well, once you get on the plane and are headed to New York, you can check out who's there and their seating arrangement, maybe figure out the rotation that way.
But we do know who's pitching for the Mets.
That one's driven to right, and Upton is there on the track, makes the catch. Morrison lines out to deep right field. That'll bring up Ed Lucas.
The Marlins on Friday night will see Jonathan Neese, the left-hander. In the doubleheader, looks like Daisuke Matsuzaka will pitch Game 1. Game 2 is Carlos Torres, and Dylan G will pitch on the Sunday game.
Well, for that Daisuke game, you might want to just make sure you have a few more extra refreshments, because he takes a while to work. Ed Lucas, fastball for a strike.
Yeah, he takes his time, Daisuke. I think his last outing, he threw over 100 pitches in 5 2/3 innings.
Lucas had a nice series. It's banged out 4 hits. Driven in a couple of runs, and Garcia misses down low. He's had a hit in every game.
So the Marlins will miss Zach Wheeler, who lost to the Nationals last night, but pitched very well.
And of course, Wheeler and Matt Harvey, the future of the Mets. In reading about Harvey, has not undergone surgery yet, and
things are looking a little better for him.
He said his arm feels great, and they're hopeful that he's able to rehab it without having the Tommy John surgery. Sometimes you can get away with that. Here's the 2-1 pitch to Lucas. It sends a flare out into center, and it's going to nestle in for a hit. So a base hit in every game of the series for Ed Lucas.
And you just love those flares when they drop into the outfield. This is an outfield, because it's so big and because outfielders play a step or two deeper, that you have an opportunity to drop a few in. Off the end of the bat, and Ed Lucas will take it. 4-game hitting streak now for Ed.
Here's Echeverria. He was in the leadoff spot last night, went 1 for 5, and Garcia misses away. It's 1-0. Braves did not lose any ground in that race for the best record in the National League with the loss last night. 87-58. St. Louis and Los Angeles both at 85. Simmons goes the short way to get the out, and the inning ends. Scoreless here, headed to the third.
Es presentado en SAP por Coventry Healthcare of Florida.
That's a nice cap to wear to the ball game as the Marlins and the Braves get ready to go. What do you think, Tommy?
I think she may have gotten that from our Fox Box operator, Bill Wadelick.
It's a very good chance. Always dapper with his caps and hats. And as Elliot Johnson gets ready to go, scoreless ball game in the third. And the top of the order for the Braves. Second go round against lefty Brian Flynn, who has flirted with some issues in the first and the second. He's given up a walk and a hit in each inning. But both times he was able to get out of it. A scorching double play ball in the first off the bat of Gaddis. And he retired the last three that he faced, Ugla, B.J. Upton, and Freddie Garcia, to get out of the second.
It's a good way to pitch, but it's not a good way to pitch at this level, to have a base hit and a walk every inning and then have to make perfect pitches and have to rely on defensive play. So I'm sure Brian Flynn would like to have himself a nice 1-2-3 inning.
Pop up, Morrison charges for it, and it bounces off the top of the dugout. The races in both places keep getting interesting. In the wild card, in the National League, Pittsburgh and Cincinnati seem to have cemented it along with St. Louis, but Washington is 6 back. The Nationals have won 5 in a row. All of a sudden, in 3 or 4 days' time, if the Nationals stay hot, Tommy, they could be looking at 3 or 4 back with 10 or 12 to play.
Well, they got a nice start. Who did not pitch very well here from Dan Herron in their game last night. Zimmerman hit a home run. And there's another walk from Flynn. So they've gotten that offense on track. I saw where Bryce Harper's back now. He didn't play for a few games. He's back. Zimmerman's been hot. LaRoche.
In the American League, Boston, Detroit, and Oakland, the division leaders. Texas and Tampa Bay right now, but look at who's behind Tampa Bay. The Yankees are a game back. Baltimore's a game and a half back. Cleveland's a game and a half back. And Kansas City, Tommy Hutton, is 2 back.
How about the way Oakland has separated themselves a little bit from Texas?
Yes.
In leading the West.
Yeah, Oakland with a 3-game lead over the Rangers. And remember, last year the Rangers had that enormous lead and collapsed. Oakland came charging back. In fact, the last 3 games of the season, Oakland had to win all 3 to win the division, and they did. And the Rangers got kicked to the wild card game and then were beaten in the wild card game by Baltimore.
Well, the Rangers, after just being swept by the Pirates, may be thinking some of that stuff right now.
Well, Brian Flynn, against this ball club, if he continues to walk guys early in innings, is looking for trouble. He misses down low. 1-1.
You talk about a lot of the differences between AAA and the major leagues. You can kind of get away with that in the minor league level. But if you start walking guys up here and you don't have strikeout stuff, it's going to come back to bite you.
Yeah, because now, having walked Elliott Johnson, he's got Justin Upton, Freddie Freeman, Evan Gattis, Chris Johnson. Two and one. Upton walked in the first, and he fouls that one back and out of play. The Marlins, of course, headed up for a 4-gamer in New York, 3 in Philly, then 4 in Washington.
Been kind of an interesting year in Philadelphia.
It has been, because the Phillies, many people felt that they were getting too old and needed to rebuild, but at the same time they've extended Chase Utley. It looks like they're staying with their core of guys, and they've added to it by signing a high-priced foreign player, a Cuban player.
It'll be our first look at the Phillies with Ryan Sandberg in charge. They'll have to make a decision there too. Philadelphia will.
I have a hard time seeing them not hire Ryan Sandberg. Now that one is line foul. The runner was going. I mean, Sandberg is a guy that has gone above and beyond paying his dues in the minor leagues as a manager, whereas there's a lot of players, let alone Hall of Fame players, that wouldn't take that route. But he did. He's paid his dues. He's finally getting a chance to manage. 3-2. Runner on the move. And it's in. And now Brian Flynn has got to face Freddie Freeman with runners at first and second. Nobody out. So 4 walks in those 49 pitches. Costly. Not yet, but stay tuned. All right, Twitter poll, AT&T Uverse brings it to you. Can this Braves team win the World Series? Hashtag Braves, yes. Hashtag Braves, no. I'll go hashtag Braves, yes.
I'll go hashtag Braves, no.
Okay. Should we get McCann to come up and get between us?
Get between us, yeah.
Cool things down.
Settle things down. I didn't smile when I said that. You know, Flynn started the game. He threw 10 strikes and 5 balls. Since then, he's thrown 15 strikes and 20 balls. So it's just been the total opposite.
All right, why do you feel #no?
I think, first of all, for them to win, they'd have to have a B.J. Upton and Dan Uggla performing the way they normally perform to fill out the offense.
That's fair.
And secondly, I'm just not sold on their starting pitchers. Bullpen, yes. Terrific bullpen.
Well, I'm #yes because I think once you get in the postseason, if a team gets hot, it obviously carries you a long way.
So then you would go #yes with any team.
Yeah, well, just about, but in particular for the Braves. And the question is, can they win the World Series? That's another walk. And 23-year-old Brian Flynn is having technical difficulties right now. He has walked the bases loaded. And Evan Gattis is coming to the plate. And one of the reasons I go #yes is the guy that's coming to the plate, and that's Evan Gattis. Gattis, to me, is the wild card of this Braves team. Obviously, if B.J. Upton doesn't come around, I think you're going to see Gattis out in the outfield, in left field, once the postseason starts. And if he stays hot, Tommy, look out, because he's a terrific complement to Freeman, to McCann, and to Johnson. He's the Cholula Hot Sauce Spotlight player.
Well, he's one of those guys that you can say is a game changer. He can turn a game around with his power. And I'm with you. I'd be shocked if when they start postseason, if he's not out there somewhere in the lineup.
Absolutely. And you brought up the point last night, and it's I don't want to say wishful thinking, but it's something that Braves fans could take to heart if the Braves get to the World Series. There's your designated hitter right there, and a really good one. All right, Flynn really walking on the edge now. He was able to strand a runner in the first after a walk and a hit. He stranded 2 after a walk and a hit in the second. Gattis hammers one, and it's by Lucas, and it's down the line, and here comes the damage. Johnson scores, Upton scores, and the Braves have a 2-0 lead.
Well, it's inevitable when you just gift the other team with bases on balls, and then you have to throw a fastball to an aggressive fastball hitter. You know Gattis is going to be on that. So there's that solid swing, just a powerful, violent type swing, and he drills one past Ed Lucas at third base.
That one is hammered. Johnson drives it to the wall, to the corner. 2 more runs coming. Freeman and Gattis score, and the Braves have taken advantage of Brian Flynn's wildness. Back-to-back RBI doubles.
Well, and all 3 walks score. So it's one thing to give up those back-to-back doubles, but when they follow 3 walks, it's a lot of trouble. So a good day so far for Chris Johnson. He's got a couple of hits. He's 2 for 2.
Simmons fouls it back and out of play. Sam Dyson is up in Miami's bullpen. He's the long man in this ball game, and certainly Mike Redmond didn't want to have him up in the 3rd inning.
Well, it goes back to the topic and the conversation we've had for the last week. The starters haven't been able to give, other than Jose Fernandez, have not been able to give Mike Redmond that start that takes him into the 6th or 7th inning, where he can relax that bullpen a little bit.
And it's not just Flynn, it's the rest of the starters. Henderson Alvarez, Jacob Turner. Counts 1 and 2. Fernandez, of course, 7 innings last night. Tom Kohler has had issues trying to get to the 6th and the 7th. A lot of 4 or 5 inning starts for the Marlins this last 7 to 10 days. The only bit of good news about that is that the rosters have expanded, so there's plenty of arms down there, but you want your starters getting deep, because after a while, it doesn't matter how many arms you got down there, you get tired of going there midway through a ball game. That's a foul ball.
Pretty soon you run out of guys down there.
Well, since September 3rd, the Marlins are 3-5. 2 of those wins by Jose Fernandez. I mean, the numbers are pretty startling when you subtract Fernandez out of the equation in terms of wins and losses for the team over the course of the season.
Well, in his 28 starts, the Marlins as a team were 18-10. And really for Jose, in his last 18 starts, the Marlins were 14-4.
Just some terrific stuff on the internet today about the season that Fernandez had. Richard Justice writing a real nice piece and putting into perspective many of these articles, the historic significance of the season that Fernandez had.
And I think that's important, Rich, because Richard Justice, a writer out of Houston. So you're not just getting writers in this area.
Simmons fouls that back. Kenton Wong has a nice column on ESPN.com's baseball page. And the headline is Fernandez rookie season among the best ever by a pitcher. Only 3 other rookie pitchers to qualify for the ERA title have finished with an ERA of under 2.20 since the Rookie of the Year award was given out back in 1947. That one pulled foul. It's a nice long at bat for Simmons to discuss this topic, Tommy. 2 of those.
It's a good discussion. I like it.
Stan Bonson in 68, Dave Righetti in 81 went on to win Rookie of the Year award. The other, one of Craig's guys, Jerry Koosman, lost out because he just happened to have that year, the year Johnny Bench was a rookie and Bench won Rookie of the Year.
Bad timing.
Simmons.
As great as Fernando Valenzuela was, and here are 2 names that people remember. Valenzuela in his rookie season in 81 had an ERA of 2.48. Mark the Bird Fidrich in 1976 had an ERA of 2.34. And Jose Fernandez below both of those guys at 2.19.
Well, the long at bat ends with a pop. Lucas makes the catch. Johnson still standing at second. Damage has been done here in the 3rd by the Braves. 3 walks to open the inning by Brian Flynn. And then back-to-back 2-run doubles by Evan Gattis and Chris Johnson.
31 pitches for Brian Flynn so far just this inning. 67 in the game.
Here is Ugla. Our buddy Ken Rosenthal in his column talking about postseason awards. Has Jose Fernandez at the top of the list. Ugla pulls a ground ball. Lucas to his left. A little spinorama there. And he throws him out.
I think I could be stepping out of bounds here. That wouldn't be unusual. But I think sometime in the next few weeks we're going to have a chat, aren't we, with Ken Rosenthal?
Oh, we always do. It's a tradition.
Yeah, I think we are. About some postseason stuff, some award stuff.
Now B.J. Upton. So Ugla's 0 for 2. B.J. Upton flied to right as Freddie Gonzalez gets both of these struggling sluggers a game to try to climb out of the hole and start to get a little something going.
And they're both in pretty deep holes, too.
Flynn misses outside, and it's 2-1. Went around 2-2. Flynn in New Orleans had a nice ERA, 2.80. Didn't walk a lot of guys, 122 strikeouts and 40 walks.
That's what hasn't translated so far up here. And it's only his second start in the major leagues.
2-2. Big breaking ball misses in. And they count full to B.J. Upton. Strike three, outside corner. Down goes Upton. But the Braves put 4 up on the board and lead it 4-0.
Real staple of their offense. In fact, the Marlins have had trouble shutting things down here on the homestand, giving up some big innings. Marlins did have to make some changes, as we talked about. Nathan Eovaldi with that stiff back is out and right now not penciled back in. Brad Hand, who was originally supposed to go second game of the doubleheader Saturday in New York, he's now been moved up and he will pitch on Friday. It's still Henderson Alvarez in the first game of the doubleheader, and now Jacob Turner will pitch the second game of the doubleheader on Saturday. And then in the Sunday finale at Citi Field, Tom Kohler will get a chance to pitch in his native New York as a starter. Now, the plan has been for Brian Flynn to take Jose Fernandez's spot in the rotation. We'll see how that goes, because if Brad Hand continues to impress, maybe there'll be some jockeying and other opportunities for some of the other Marlin pitchers. We'll see. Guys?
All right, thank you, Craig. Now the Marlins trying to dig out of this 4-0 hole, and they've got a veteran on the mound that knows what to do with the lead. Rob Brantley, Brian Flynn, and then Chris Coghlan against Freddie Garcia. And Garcia has been every bit of that baffling to Miami so far in his 2 innings. Logan Morrison probably had the best swing on a line drive to the warning track and right. End of the bat, Simmons goes out, and it's over his head. Brantley's got a base hit, and that leads off the bottom of the third.
Good for Rob Brantley to get that hit. He had not gotten hit in his few opportunities since returning. That you go back to even before he was sent down to AAA, that snaps an 0 for 14. So a little bit off the end of the bat. Certainly he'll take it. Both hits have been of the similar type. The one by Ed Lucas and that one.
So here's Flynn. He'll, in all likelihood, try to push Brantley up with a bunt.
On the good news note for Brian Flynn, he got a base hit in that first outing in Chicago.
And puts down a real nice bunt. Garcia fires to first in time to get Flynn on the sacrifice. There's Brantley at second. Coghlan comes up. Just to continue the discussion, if you're around your computer and watching the ball game and looking for stuff to read, we told you that Ken Rosenthal on FoxSports.com has a nice column about postseason awards. Jay Jaffe on SportsIllustrated.com, SI.com, their major league site, has a nice article that kind of capsulizes last night's ball game, the histrionics that went on, and at the same time talks about Jose's historic rookie season. So plenty to look at and plenty to read. See, that's the difference from the old days, Tommy, when I was young and would go to the ball game and bring the sports page. All you had was a sports page. One sports page, you read the box scores.
And then once a week, you were able to get the sporting news.
I was Sports Illustrated on Fridays. But now, you can bring your iPad or your laptop or whatever device.
And you can be everything on every day.
And you can read every newspaper around the country. You can read all the national websites. You can read the good blogs that different teams and different folks have. Coghlan takes a strike. You saw Coghlan's reaction to that. It's 1-2. You know, left-handed hitter doesn't see this very often from a right-hander. You think about a lefty like Coghlan, he'll see it from left-handers. But rarely do you see this style to this extent from a right-hander.
Yeah, you don't see that many, as you pointed out, soft-tossing right-handers. We haven't given the scouting report on Freddie Garcia. We've talked a lot about it, and we've told you a little bit. High 80s. That's about it with the fastball. All 4 pitches for strikes. He'll throw everything, and he does have a splitter. He'll use that once in a while.
Coghlan fouls it at the plate.
Chris has had a pretty good series, 4 for 9 in this series against Atlanta.
Brantley the runner at second. Miami trying to get on the board, down 4-0 to the Braves. Coghlan takes out. Gaddis tried to get that strike for Garcia.
As you can see, not very much in the middle.
Here's the 2-2. And Coghlan swings and misses and screws himself right into the ground on that swing.
And probably what was the splitter is what he swung and missed at.
There are a lot of frustrated hitters in the Marlins dugout right now trying to figure out why and how Freddie Garcia is getting them out.
Bottom falls out. Works as a good changeup and then has that diving motion.
So now Solano, he bounced to short back in the first. Five ground ball outs, a couple of strikeouts, and a liner to right. And that's how Freddie Garcia has handled Miami. Ground ball into left. That's a base hit, and Brantley races around third, and he'll come home and score. So Solano, who is Miami's best, believe it or not, with runners in scoring position, continues to drive home runs.
It's amazing. He came into that at bat hitting .350 with runners in scoring position, and just upset as he drives home Brantley for the Marlins' first run.
And there's 2 outs, Tommy. With 2 outs and runners in scoring position, .455.
Just out of the reach of Johnson making that dive. I mean, he's 100 points higher in his batting average with runners in scoring position.
Yelich now with the count 1-0. Got Stanton on deck. Braves have built this lead against rookie Brian Flynn. And you've got such a stark contrast between Flynn making his second major league start and Garcia, his 355th career start. His career record as a starter is 153 and 106. So that tells you how good he was in his prime. Misses in on that 2-0 pitch.
Well, he's been a 16-game winner, a 17-game winner. He was 18-6 in 2001. Freddie Garcia going down, getting a little dirt, a la Jose Fernandez instead of the rosin bag.
3-1 on Yelich. Stanton's on deck. And Yelich had a swing at a fastball and fouls it back out of play. Garcia on that World Championship team, and that was a terrific rotation. They dominated, especially in the World Series, but through the postseason. Mark Burley was 16-8. Garcia was 14-8 with a 3.87 ERA. John Garland won 18 games. Jose Contreras won 15 games. (3-2). And it's down low. So Yelich doesn't give in to Garcia. And now you've got finesse against power. Garcia against Stanton. Stanton struck out, chasing back in the second. This thing could change on one swing. Boy, a good breaking ball to hit, and it's in for a strike.
That's what they call a get me over curveball. Just think about it now as you watch this at bat. That could be the best pitch Stanton sees, at least the best and the one that has the most of the plate.
Well, in your scouting report, the significant sentence for me was 4 pitches for strikes. And for a guy like Garcia facing Stanton, that's so important to have 4 different looks you can throw up there.
Well, you saw a curveball. He tried to run a 2-seamer in on him and missed.
Stanton hammers that one. Simmons on his knee. Terrific play. Probably saved a run. And the Marlins now have him loaded up, and here comes Morrison.
Looked like he went with the splitter on that pitch. That Stanton hit sharply, but you're right. Simmons saved a run. and sets up this bases loaded situation with Lomo.
Simmons was thinking he might be able to get the out at third as he slid to get this ball.
That was his only hope, and then once he got himself to his feet, he didn't have a play at first.
Morrison had a good at bat against Garcia in the second. He had a liner that sent Justin Upton back to the track in right field. And he hits this one in the air to center field. B.J. Upton is there, makes the catch. The Marlins leave him loaded. 4-1 Atlanta. Braves on top, headed to the fourth inning. If you want to celebrate your child's birthday with a Marlins sea creature, you can do it. Enjoy the game from a private field level area. Plus, your child will be the honorary starter for the Great Sea Race. Birthday packages only $39 per person with inclusive food, autographs, and more. Book your party at marlins.com. Marlins are hopeful that Brian Flynn has ironed out his control problems because that has been a problem. He has walked 3 in a row to start the third. They all scored in a 4-run inning.
Well, it took him 39 pitches to get through that third inning. And he has a big target up here, and Freddie Garcia to start things.
Garcia a little tapper, and Flynn has it. Throws to first in time. And an out to start the fourth.
Good way to start. Got himself in good position to make that play, and he knew he had time with Garcia, the runner.
What are you looking forward to most on this road trip, Tommy Hutton? New York, it's going to be busy. There's 4 games. Remember, Saturday, the 4 o'clock game is on television. The late game is not. Then off to Philly for 3, and then Washington for 4.
A couple of things. I mean, Craig will be disappointed. I'm not really looking forward to anything in New York. But in Philadelphia, always enjoy going to Citizens Bank. Good atmosphere. I'm sure the fans have kind of tailed off a little bit, especially after the Eagles' big win. They'll be all on board with that. And then as we go to Washington, I think it'll be interesting to see if they're still in that hunt, if they close the gap a little bit more by the time the Marlins get there.
It's 6 back right now in that wild card race are the Nationals. They're hot. Little tapper up the line, and there's no way you're going to get Elliott Johnson. That's a base hit.
Now Tommy.
That sounds like Craig has.
I awaken the sleeping bear out there.
I figured since Shea is part of history, you'd look forward to New York these days.
Yeah, but there's no longer Shea, so it's Citi Field.
That's why I figured you'd be happy, because you didn't like work. Although you loved hitting there. You loved hitting there, but you didn't like working there. not many people did. But yeah, the Mets Marlins series isn't as attractive as it's been in past years. We've had some fun series up there, but it should be fun to watch and a fun bunch of series through the East Division.
A little disappointed we won't see Matt Harvey.
Yeah.
Mr. Met will be there, though, in all his glory. The Fanatic will greet us in Philly.
And those two have struck up a real nice relationship.
Yeah, it's a very compelling commercial where they were at odds, but much like last night after the game with Jose and the Braves, they were able to come to a peaceful conclusion and understanding. And then the racing presidents, and as you pointed out, the Nationals and the Mets are playing today. And that game is tied 1-1, but it's delayed right now, or at least that's what it says. So that's not so good for starting pitchers. Marlins have been through that this year with that Strasburg-Alvarez start up in D.C. This game is in New York. Ryan Zimmerman has hit his 23rd homer. It's 1-1, Nationals and Mets. Delayed in the first.
Yeah, Aaron Harang pitching for the Mets. And the Nationals, how about the Nationals going with Tanner Roark in that game?
Nationals have won 5 straight. Mets have lost 3 in a row. Brian Flynn's pitch count and a whopping 85 here with 1 out in the 4th. Johnson's running. Brantley's throw is on the money, and Waiting got him. Great throw by Rob Brantley.
And I'll tell you why that was even greater. Combined with Kansas City and the Braves, this year, Elliott Johnson was 18 out of 18 in stolen bases. It's the first time he's been thrown out this year. A bullet by Brantley right on the money, and it had to be. Great job.
Solano didn't have to move the glove. Just catch it and hold on. So 2 outs. And Justin Upton has walked for the 3rd time. And he's on his way to first.
You would hope, you would think that these two guys, Brantley and Flynn, would be on the same page, because Brantley got a chance to catch him a little bit in AAA. And just more thoughts on last night's game. I know we both agreed that Coy Hill, who hadn't caught Jose this year, did a great job in handling him.
Freeman now. And he takes. Sam Dyson's going to be in this ball game before too long. As you see the pitch count at 88.
Just hasn't had command really of any of his pitches. The fastball, the curveball, the changeup. One of the better pitches he's thrown today was a changeup that he struck Dan Ugla out on in the 2nd inning.
6 walks already. Freeman goes after the 2-0 and fouls it back and out of play. Oakland is off to a quick start in Minnesota after scoring a ton of runs yesterday. 4-0 Oakland in the bottom of the 3rd.
He scored 18 runs yesterday.
On 22 hits. That was after Josh Willingham beat him in the first game of that series with a couple of home runs. Freeman unloads right field deep and gone.
Well, for Freddie Freeman, it's a birthday gift to himself. It's his 24th birthday today. We talked about Flynn not having command of all of his pitches, and he drops his curveball up there but didn't get it down, and once Freeman saw it up in the zone, his eyes lit up.
And the famous Freddie Freeman hug now for everybody in the dugout.
20th home run. He now has 98 RBIs.
Gaddis fouls it back. Evan Gaddis looks like the guy in the old black and white movies that was wrestling the bear in the circus.
Or the guy when you went to go get your get the shoes on the horses. The guy with the anvil, he's in the little shop.
He may have done a little of that.
He said, I can fix your horse up. I'll get him ready.
In his 4-year hiatus.
Yeah.
Along with all the other things. Just the.
What do they call those guys? Blacksmith.
Only if he were a blacksmith, he would not wear gloves.
No.
Because he doesn't wear gloves now.
And I'll bet you he appreciates every minute he wears that Major League uniform.
Swing and a miss. Went after a fastball. Braves stretch their lead to 6-1. Honda dealer for great lease and finance deals on fuel-efficient Hondas. By Coventry Healthcare of Florida, lighting the way to better health. Kind of a hazy, overcast afternoon in Miami. Marlins and Braves, and Freddie Garcia now is sporting a 5-run lead. In the bottom of the 4th, he's got Ed Lucas, Danny Echeverria, and Rob Brantley. Strike to Lucas, who singled in the 2nd. Ed Lucas has a hit in all 4 games of the series.
And you are right, Rich. Looks like we will see Sam Dyson. 96 pitches for Brian Flynn. If you go back to his outing at Wrigley Field in 8 career innings, Brian Flynn has thrown 176 pitches and has walked 9.
Tommy, that last pitch is a good example of the check swing rule, in that Lucas and his bat probably, you know, in some terms, here's the side swing. Watch him try to hold up. Now, does his bat cross the plane of the plate? Yeah, it does.
But did he attempt to strike at the ball? No.
Exactly. That's the rule. The rule is...
I knew that's where you were going.
In the umpire's mind, does the hitter attempt to strike at the ball? Not, did he break his wrist? Did the bat cross the first base line or the plane of the plate?
which is what we all heard as kids.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
No, he broke his wrist.
That was mostly from pitchers, Tommy. Check swing. Ball goes to the screen. Gaddis has to retrieve just in case on the appeal. Rob Drake says he swings. Lucas.
That to me has always been a frustrating situation, because if the home plate umpire, Andy Fletcher, if he looks down and asks Rob Drake, and if all of a sudden Rob Drake goes, yeah, he swung, and then you're standing at the plate there. Yet on the other hand, if you take off, you're saying that you swung. That's always been a difficult situation for a hitter.
You saw Fletcher say 3-2 on the count. That would be strike 3. Freddie Garcia strikes out Ed Lucas.
All 4 pitches anytime, and there was one of them. There was a big curveball.
Yeah, and that's the hard part about Garcia, is you're thinking he's going to nibble on a corner, he's going to throw that splitter in the dirt, and then suddenly it's a breaking ball and it's right down the middle and you're out. Pirates and Cubs again tonight. Cardinals and Brewers again tonight for that race in the Central. The Reds are not playing tonight. Cincinnati is in Milwaukee tomorrow night. Cardinals get a bit of a break. Seattle arrives for a weekend of interleague play. High fly ball. Elliott Johnson makes the catch.
You know, Freddie Garcia was involved as a young player in a very interesting trade. He was drafted by the Astros, but he signed by the Astros, but he never got to the big league with Houston.
He was a part of a group of young prospects in the big field.
He was acquired by the Mariners, along with infielder Carlos Guillen, lefty John Halama, and the Mariners sent Randy Johnson to Houston.
Seattle did not feel they could sign Johnson in terms of money. They felt that if they could get an ace, a young ace back, and it worked out in that sense, because Garcia showed up and he was an all-star for a couple seasons in Seattle. But he wasn't Randy Johnson. He wasn't a Hall of Famer. Into center. B.J. Upton makes the catch.
Play like a champ in the division where you play the bulk of your games in Major League Baseball. The Braves have taken advantage 16 games over 500. Washington, a late surge, 5 over now, and 10 over for the season thanks to winning 5 straight. Philly still 4 over. That's pretty impressive. Both the Mets and Marlins have struggled in the division, with the Marlins with a record of 24 and 37. And these days, you're playing in this division 18, 19 times a season, and the Braves again dominating this season set. They're up 12-6 with this final game going on, and their 6-1 lead. Guys?
Hey, Craig, I asked Tommy this question. I'll ask you this question. What are you looking forward to most on this road trip through New York, Philly, and Washington?
I always like the cheesesteaks in Philly. I think I'm looking. You're talking about baseball-wise or kind of a little
anything? Food, baseball.
At this time of the year, Craig, anything.
Yeah, I got you. Dinner in New York, because we have a very rare Saturday night off, not the ball club. That'll be nice. And I always like walking around Washington, D.C. Maybe I'll get over to some of the sites on the afternoon and in the morning, and maybe a little sightseeing there.
I'm with you. I like.
Yeah.
Walking down by the mall, yeah.
Walking through D.C. is really cool.
I think what you're not looking forward to, the one thing, maybe Tommy was referring to this too, the New York trip is the hassle to the ballpark is always it's a little more to jump on a couple of subways or a cab ride that leaves you sick by the time you get to Citi Field with all the bumps in the road.
Well, the worst part about sometimes getting in a cab in New York and asking them to take you to Citi Field, they don't know where to go.
Not only that, they don't want to go. They don't want to go to Queens. Some guys will roll that window down and ask you where you're going first, especially if you have a bag, because they don't want to go to Queens, because then you got to get back. And you don't want to get in that long line they have at the airport.
Unless it's the cash cab.
Yeah.
If you get in the cash cab, you're okay.
Hey, you're okay. You can answer a few questions and make a few bucks.
You'd have a long time if you were headed out to Citi Field in the cash cab. Chris Johnson has bounced out. Andrelton Simmons is up. And Simmons takes a fastball for a strike.
Well, they're getting a new look. Sam Dyson, who's done a nice job, generally he's come in and he's made a few appearances. Made his debut as a Marlin back on the 29th of August. Good sinker. There it is there.
And it finds Polanco, who's just into the ball game in the double switch, and he throws him out. There are 2 outs.
Yeah, Polanco came into the game. He'll bat 9th. Dyson hits in Echeverria's spot, and Ed Lucas goes over to play short.
Here's Uggla now. Uggla has struck out, bounced out. So far, Uggla and B.J. Upton are a combined 0 for 4 as they get a start, trying to get on track. For the Braves, head home and play San Diego. It's an interesting matchup. You don't normally see the Padres this far east this late in the season. Braves get Ian Kennedy right out of the chute.
We'll see the Padres early next year. That first series at home, the Colorado Rockies, and then the Padres.
Dyson's fastball misses in. Jesuit High School in Tampa. That's where Dyson's from. And a live fastball strikes out Dan Uggla. Halfway through in Miami, 6-1 Braves. Fifth. We're joined now by Joe and Cookie. Cookie, I thought I saw you dancing in the Cleveland.
Hey, Tommy, how you doing, Richie? Hey, why not, man? I would have danced last night with all that wind that Jose Fernandez got us.
Yeah, that was
very well.
That was quite a night for a lot of reasons, and I think first and foremost, he put a real signature and an exclamation point on a historic rookie season. And I mean, it's hard to say that he's sealed the Rookie of the Year award, but he certainly has made an extremely strong case for it.
If I ever had a vote for the Rookie of the Year, and looking at all the options around the league right now, there's no question in my mind that Jose Fernandez deserves to be the Rookie of the Year. I mean, at 20 years old, to bring up in a situation where a couple of our pitchers were not ready for the starting rotation, and the way he had conducted himself brought the energy to this club, the way he pitches, the quality of his pitches. I believe there's no question in my mind that we're going to see one of the stoppers in the National League in Jose Fernandez like we haven't seen in a long, long time.
Cookie, we've talked a lot about it before the game and early on, but we haven't gotten your take on the situation, the events last night with Jose.
Well, I would say that it's just the youth. I think that he was excited hitting that home run. Before that, there was a couple of things that happened on the Gaddis home run. He stared at him on running all the way from first base and second base, and that's the youth. I mean, he made a mistake after that. I believe that McCann was trying just to tell him, hey, don't do this kind of things when he hit the home run, throw the bat and stay there at home plate watching the ball go out of the ballpark. You know what he has done in batting practice all the time. He's trying to hit the home run. He's a good hitter. He tries. I don't think he meant anything by it. And in my opinion, I think that should be all forgotten. And the one thing that I want to remain Jose Fernandez is the fact that he said he doesn't belong here and he doesn't belong as a Rookie of the Year. I think that he should not say that because he does belong. He does that, the quality, and I think he deserves to be the Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, good point.
Well said. Guys, have a good show, and we'll see you in about 10 days.
All right, gentlemen. Have a great trip, please.
Have a great trip.
Thank you. Chris Coughlin is 0 for 2. He's got company. The Marlins have struggled against Freddie Garcia, whose assortment of two-seamers and splitters and breaking balls and a variety of speeds, none of which have eclipsed, 88?
Which is just a statement on how, if you can pitch, if you can change speeds, if you can mix it up, you can get hitters out at this level.
Coughlin is out. There's the speed range, 88 miles an hour, and 72 has been the low.
Yeah, the 72s are usually the splitter, is curveballs mid to upper 70s. Two-seamers are 86, 87. And a pretty respectable pitch count for Garcia, is 67.
Solano sends one into the upper reaches here at Marlins Park. And 2. Nice pickup by the Braves to get a guy like Freddie Garcia. Not necessarily because he's going to play in the postseason and help them there, but his presence here in September will allow the young arms to rest, soak up some innings out of the pen, and today a very nice start in a 9-pitch 5th inning.
in the crowd. Come right now. If you got the feeling right now. Put them to the ceiling right now. If you got the feeling right now. What you gonna do right now? If you got the feeling right now. Put them to the ceiling right now. If you got the feeling right now. What you gonna do right now? I want a sound that can reach the world right now. Find peace and release the pearl right now. Right now.
The Braves have come out swinging in this one. A 6-1 lead over the Marlins. Sam Dyson's pitch. B.J. Upton off of Dyson's glove. Safe at first on the play by Solano. And the Braves have a base runner to open up the 6th. Whether it's a hit or an error, we'll wait and see. It's a hit.
Well, another good sinker by Dyson just got in on the hands of Upton. He gets jammed. The ball just squibs off him. Because of Upton's speed, he just beats the effort of Solano.
Infield hit. Freddie Garcia's up, and he's going to attempt to bunt. He does. Polanco thought about second, thought twice about second, and then goes to first. I think Polanco looked up to second, figuring Upton would be there, and then he had to take a double take.
I think he was surprised when he looked up and realized he did have a play at second. And gets the sure out at first base.
So top of the order for the Braves, Elliott Johnson and Justin Upton. We told you that Sam Dyson out of Jesuit High School in Tampa. University of South Carolina is where he went and played his college ball. That chopper is over the mound. It's Lucas at short, and he just got Johnson. Elliott Johnson hustling down the line. B.J. Upton moves to third.
I bet tell you what, nothing but ground balls. He has that two-seamer and sinker really working. That Lucas gets tested. That's a close play.
Dyson's a guy that has had to overcome a lot of medical issues. Labrum and rotator cuff surgery at the University of South Carolina back in '07. Tommy John surgery in 2010. And the Blue Jays drafted him in 2010. He did get to the big leagues with the Blue Jays for a couple of games in 2012. And now he's back in the big leagues the following season here. And pitched all over the place this year. Jacksonville, New Orleans. His ERA almost identical, both AAA, AA. 2.63 in Jacksonville, 2.61 in New Orleans.
And you can see velocity-wise, it's a heavy sinker, 95, 96.
Two and two. Good high fastball, 96 on the fastball, and Dyson strikes out Justin Upton. Braves in control here, 6-1. It picked up the entire front office of Fox Sports Florida. Steve Tello there in the white shirt, our fearless leader. And you could be a part of it as well. To enter and win a ride on the Marlins Fan Express, go to foxsportsflorida.com. And in 100 words or less, tell us why you deserve to bring your friends and family to the game on the Fan Express. Entry is free, a click away. The Fox Sports Florida Fan Express Sweepstakes. Actually, you go to marlins.com. So go to marlins.com for the Fox Sports Florida Fan Express.
I have to admit, last night, Rich,
Christian Yelich sends one into left field. Yelich has a base hit to open the 6th inning.
boy, so many times he stays back so well, drives that ball the other way. But I have to admit, last night, with the excitement of the game, driving home on 95, heading toward the northbound turnpike, Golden Glades, I passed the Fan Express, which was going the speed limit.
It's good to know. Was one of the Fox Sports Florida girls driving?
You know, it was raining very hard, so I wanted to keep my eye on the road, and I didn't look.
Always good advice. Here is Stanton. 1 for 2, an infield hit. Garcia gets a strike. One breaking ball scorched at third. Johnson got an out there. The turn by Uggla's in the dirt. Freeman can't pick it. Chris Johnson had to go down and make a tough pick to start that. Stanton is aboard at first.
Well, he made a good play. Picked that ball cleanly. Strong throw to Uggla. And this was a double play. If Uggla keeps the throw up a little bit, he didn't get a pick from Freeman. Freeman upset. Freddie Freeman thinking to himself, I got to have that ball.
Morrison now. Line to right, fly to center. Fouls it at the plate. Garcia misses away. This has been an exercise in patience for Marlin hitters. Archimedes Caminero warming up. Because Freddie Garcia has played with their heads all day long.
I think I used the term the other day, and I forget which pitcher we were talking about, which opposing pitcher, but a guy like Freddie Garcia can school younger hitters with off-speed stuff, making you think he throws harder than he really does. And not throwing very many pitches that get a lot of the plate. Jordan Walden gets ready, and I'm sure if Freddie Gonzalez gets 6 innings out of Garcia, he'll be extremely happy.
Yes, he will be. Because much like the Marlins starters are banged up, and right now some of the young ones seem to be running out of gas, that's the thing that Gonzalez doesn't want to have happen to the Braves when they get to the postseason. And that's the importance of Freddie Garcia right now in the rotation. He's going to tag Morrison out. for the second out. Yelich, or rather Stanton, is now at second.
Well, and again, having Logan Morrison out in front of a big breaking ball. He's used that curveball. He's used the split. Here's the curveball. Might have been the split. Either way, he has Logan Morrison fooled and gets over and makes the play himself.
Lucas, a 1-for-2 day. And Uggla's there to snare that one. And finish the Marlins in the 6th. On to the 7th. All Braves today, 6-1. Freddie Freeman going deep. Freeman has had a nice series and a 2-for-2 day. This, a 2-run homer in the 4th. Brian Flynn making his second major league start, and it did not go well. Lots of walks and lots of runs.
That home run, estimated distance 398 from Freddie Freeman.
Freeman, Evan Gattis, Chris Johnson scheduled against Sam Dyson. The Yankees without Derek Jeter for the rest of the season. Of course, as we pointed out earlier, the Yankees and a host of other teams have made the American League wild card race interesting, with the Rays losing a couple in a row. The Yankees have crept a little bit closer, a game back. Baltimore a game and a half. Cleveland a game and a half. And Kansas City 2 back. Freeman cranks another one to center field. Yelich is out there.
The Yankees just keep hanging around. And with all the injuries, all the things they've dealt with, they just keep hanging in there as we check on the National League scoreboard.
Washington, they've resumed that game in New York, has a 2-1 lead. See the Padres and the Phillies tonight. Padres are in Atlanta tomorrow. Cubs and Pirates tonight. Giants and Dodgers tonight. A lot of the teeth has been taken out of that rivalry. Giant fans have enjoyed their 2 world championships, but this is Los Angeles' year in that division.
I guess the interesting thing about the Giants this year, they pretty much, with a few changes, had a lot of the same players this year, but just didn't work this year for Bruce Bochy. I think Matt Cain had an off year.
Well, the Yankees went out and acquired Brendan Ryan from Seattle. And Ryan is a I don't want to say he's the opposite of Jeter, but he brings something that Jeter doesn't have, which is a lot of great range and supreme defense at this point in Jeter's career. That's a fair ball. How it stayed fair, not sure. Chris Johnson around first, and he's hustling to second for a double. And a 3-hit day for Chris Johnson, which is significant as Johnson in the batting race came into the ball game hitting .328.
Oh, he talked about his battle with Michael Kadire. Well, the Rockies are not playing tonight.
.331 is where Johnson sits after that base hit.
So that puts him 3 points behind Kadire. They came in the day, and Kadire was at .334. He's going to stay there.
Simmons 0 for 2. Sounded like it hit him. And Simmons is on his way to first.
Yeah, I think it did. So because of that, Johnson will have to go back to second base. That's one of those I've always thought was a hard call for an umpire, because he's going a lot by sound. Does it tick the jersey or the glove? And that's a tough call.
The home plate umpire Andy Fletcher told Mike Rimmon it hit his arm. As far inside as it was, it's amazing that it nearly missed him. Blanco gathers it in and steps on the bag, and the Braves are done in the seventh inning stretch in Miami. 6-1 Atlanta.
Six to 1. It's been a bit of a strange season for the Braves. They've got a great record. If they win this game, they'll be 30 games over 500. If it finishes out the way it's going, there'll be some elusive company. The Braves are 30 games over 500 with a win, but under 500 on the road so far this year. Only 14 teams have done this since 1902. That is, finished 30 games over 500, but be under 500 on the road. None of the 14 teams ever won the World Series, but not fair in 1902. There was no World Series when Philadelphia was the AL champion. They did not play that championship, the World Series, till the next year. You look at the Braves here. With a win today, there'll be a game under 500 with 37 wins, but well over 500 at 51-20. Asked Freddie Gonzalez about it. He says there's really nothing I can ascertain as to why we don't play as well on the road. There's no question, guys, they're going to have to answer this, because somewhere along the line in the postseason, you've got to win some road games, and the Braves have struggled this year to do that.
Well, Craig, that's why that home field is so important. Home field through the National League portion of the postseason. Jordan Walden enters the game.
Yeah, and you mentioned that earlier, Rich, the Braves with their 87 wins. Cardinals and Dodgers each with 85.
Juan Pierre into right field, and that's a base hit, and Pierre is a hit closer to Joe DiMaggio.
Tell you what, his pinch hitting has just been tremendous over the last few weeks. Juan Pierre now 10 pinch hits on the season. That ties him with Greg Dobbs.
He is one shy of DiMaggio now, 2,214. The list that I've got has DiMaggio at 2,215.
There is a discrepancy. I heard this conversation the other day. There are a number of sources that have it at the tie and the other at 15. I'm going to go with the 2004 tie. I'm going to go with the tie. So he's tied with Joe DiMaggio. Either way.
I'll go there. I'll give it to him. Why the discrepancy? Is there a story behind that? I've missed that.
Yeah, it's kind. I think it's just, you know, you go back over the years. It's kind of like those for years. The RBI for the 190 RBIs. That was the record was changed. Every once in a while, something like that from years past. Somebody finds another box score and adds or subtracts another hit.
I guess it would be like that scene in Anchorman when the news networks have a street fight. If Elias and Stats Inc., the statistical bureaus,
They go at it.
They go at it. They throw down. I've got 2,215. I've got 2,214. It's on.
Show me.
Where is that hit? Ground ball, second. Ugla scoops. Simmons to first in time. So a couple outs from Walden here in the bottom of the seventh. Toyota Trent, Atlanta leading the series, but they've never swept a four-game series in Miami, and obviously it won't happen here. The Marlins winners last night. Polanco takes a strike, his second at bat. So Juan Pierre and Joe DiMaggio,
they're tied. Where I go is Baseball Reference. And you and I were looking at this the other day with Joe DiMaggio missing 3 years, 43, 44, and 45 to the military. And Baseball Reference, 2,214 hits for Joe DiMaggio.
soft one to right. Upton is there and makes the catch. And Polanco is out, headed to the eighth.
hurts you, and after 3 consecutive walks, it's a big double by Evan Gattis. Got a 5-game hitting streak now. He drives in the first 2 runs for Atlanta. Chris Johnson continues his hot hitting. Another double. This was right after the Gattis 2-base hit. And for Johnson, an RBI. Well, the Marlins got a little something going, and Donovan Solano hitting over 350 with runners in scoring position. Drives in a run, gets an RBI, but the Braves just aren't going to let up. A hanging breaking ball. Freddie Freeman on his 24th birthday hits his 20th home run of the season. Now has 98 RBIs on the year and keeps his name right there in MVP contention.
Without a doubt, Archimedes Caminero takes over. And Caminero gets B.J. Upton. Pitcher spot, Elliot Johnson.
Well, a nice job by Sam Dyson. He restored a little order. He threw strikes. He threw quality strikes. Gave up just a couple of hits in his 3 shutout innings.
Much needed 3 shutout innings after 4 tough ones for Brian Flynn. So here's Caminero, and here is Upton. Upton got an infield single off of Dyson's glove in the 6th inning.
David Carpenter getting loose. Times we've seen Caminero, good solid arm, good fastballs and sliders. Most of the year Jacksonville went 5-2. Impressive thing about Caminero in Double-A this year, right-handers hit 135 against him.
Slow ground ball. Lucas has to hurry. He does, and he makes the play. So an out from Caminero here in the 8th. Next Corona Light Marlins watch party is tomorrow. Sports Grill in Kendall. Marlins and Mets 7:10. Prizes and tickets to upcoming games. Meet Billy and the Energy Team. Enjoy great wings and Corona Light specials at Sports Grill in Kendall. For more information, go to marlins.com. Joey Terdoslavich. And he takes a strike. Terdoslavich pinch hitting for Jordan Walden. So the Braves will be bringing in a new pitcher in the bottom of the 8th. Freddie Garcia in this game. Well, he didn't look like the Freddie Garcia of old because he was only throwing 85 miles an hour, but
the results were the same.
Absolutely. 6 innings, 5 hits, a run, a walk, and 3 strikeouts.
Through just 81 pitches. Brian Flynn in his 4 innings threw 96.
You know, Garcia is eligible to be on the postseason roster. To be on the postseason roster, you have to join the team September 1st by September 1st. So, for instance, the Yankees, who just acquired Brendan Ryan to play short, Ryan's not eligible to play in the postseason.
Someone was asking the other day because when they made that move, they put Derek Jeter on the disabled list, and somebody said, well, in September you don't really have to do that. Well, they did to make room on their roster, their 40-man roster for Ryan.
Count 1-2. And Caminero bounces one up there.
Boy, what a lost year for the Yankee captain. Derek Jeter, trying to come back from that severe ankle injury.
Jeter saying that he's going to start preparing for 2014. It would be nice to have him, but it's not like the Yankees are struggling without him. They're playing pretty well.
They're playing great baseball.
Oakland's lead on Minnesota is now 5-0 in the top of the 6th. That'll put some more pressure on the Rangers. Oakland and the Rangers have a series in Arlington, which opens tomorrow night. Kraslovic swings and misses. So Caminero, a couple of outs here in the 8th. And here's Elliott Johnson.
Well, one of the guys, and we've talked about it a little bit, that's really helped the Yankees is Alfonso Soriano. He has 32 home runs on the year combined with the Cubs and the Yankees, but 15 home runs in just 43 games for the Yankees.
Elliott Johnson with a high pop. Polanco near the mound makes the catch. And the inning is over. Caminero, a brief appearance in the 8th. Knocking around rookie Brian Flynn, who started for the Fish. David Carpenter comes out of Atlanta's bullpen after 6 very nice innings from Freddie Garcia. Yep, Freddie Garcia getting outs. He struggled to do that in Baltimore this year, but his first start as a Brave goes well.
They get a good inning from Jordan Walden. Now turn it over to David Carpenter.
We're talking about the Nationals and the Mets. The Nationals have a 2-1 lead in that ball game. Brian Zimmerman and Adam LaRoche have homered. Chris Coughlin now 0 for 3. Takes a fastball down low. It's 2-1 Nationals in the bottom of the 3rd. Coughlin pulls one on the ground Uggla's way. And an out here in the bottom of the 8th inning. In that Mets lineup, Lucas Duda is back. Ruben Tejada back at short.
Yeah, we'll find out a little more. I know, and it seems kind of senseless. I know David Wright's been recovering from that hamstring injury, and there has been talk that he'd like to get back and play a few games. It doesn't make sense, but Yeah, we'll find out a little bit more when we're in New York this weekend. Right now, Josh Satin playing third base.
Ball and a strike. And an out. Solano has driven in the only run. That was a single back in the third. Carpenter catches a corner. 1-2. Braves are hopeful that in their bullpen, Scott Downs continues his recovery from a broken finger in his non-throwing hand. He's a big piece of that pen after losing their two lefties, O'Flaherty and Venters.
Yeah, he's been a nice compliment for Luis Avilan.
For Walden, pitching today was significant. He'd not pitched since the 21st of August. And he was on a really nice run before he went down with the groin injury. Solano swings and misses and strikes out. 2 outs here in the 8th. Up comes Yelich. Of course, after the road trip for Miami, their final homestand is a rather unique one. Not the Phillies, which is a 3-game series, though the Phillies are fun, but not unique. The Marlins see a lot of them. The Tigers are here to end the year. A 3-game weekend series that ends the 2013 season.
Nice game for former Marlin Anibal Sanchez last night. Tigers beat the White Sox 1-0. Sanchez went 7 1/3 shutout innings. 14-7 on the year for Sanchez with a 2.50 ERA.
And that 2.50 ERA leads the American League. The next two on that list, Yu Darvish and Bartolo Colon, and they face each other on Saturday. Three 3-0 to Yelich. Carpenter at the knees for a strike. Yankees and Orioles tonight in Baltimore. Bit of a contentious series there from the outset, with the managers jawing at each other.
Yeah, I don't think there's any love lost between Buck Showalter and Joe Girardi.
Buck Showalter, former Yankee manager long ago.
Former Yankee minor league player.
Up the middle into center field. Yelich has his second hit. So a 2-for-3 day for Yelich. And that gives Stanton a chance with a runner at first and 2 outs.
Well, just more good at bats, more good swings from Christian Yelich, who has shown everybody here he is capable and able to play here every day. Very nice with the swing on Phantom Cam. A thing of beauty. I feel like I have to talk slower when we show Phantom Cam.
Sort of like Harry Callis, John Facenda.
Yeah.
No doubt when we get to Philly, we'll hear Harry Callis sing the rubber tree plant song.
You hope you don't.
And I know you don't, but that's when the Phillies win.
When they win, yeah.
They crank it up. And I believe that was from a postseason party.
Yeah, I think that was in 1980. And they won the World Series.
They play it up on the scoreboard in Philly.
So
Stanton fouls it back. It's 1-2.
So I'm just thinking here, our next email Twitter Tuesday will be in Philadelphia Tuesday night. And then just one more after that.
To what happens, though, is in the offseason on Tuesday nights, Tommy and I fire up the iPads, and
it's lonely. It can be lonely.
It's the home version.
I'll text you. You'll tweet me.
Well, a lot of that goes on during the postseason because we're watching games and seeing stuff, and we have crack staffers that join in the conversation from around the globe, be it Northern California, Alaska, Tallahassee. 2-2. Stanton swings and misses. Gaddis squeezes it. And Carpenter finishes the fish in the 8th. On top, Marlins and Braves have arrived in the 9th, and the Twitter poll, Tommy and I were divided on this, and just about everybody else is as well. AT&T U-verse Twitter poll, can the Braves win the World Series? I went with yes. I'm not saying they're my favorite team to win the World Series, but I think they can.
And I went with no. So I think our viewers were a little divided as well.
So I guess the question would be, who would be our favorite to win the World Series if the World Series were played right now?
I think I've gone on record as saying that I think the World Series matchup will be the Dodgers and the Tigers. So I better stick with that.
I'll go Cardinals and Red Sox. Boston and St. Louis. I'm still
either of those World Series would be entertaining.
Yeah, I'm still sticking with St. Louis to win the Central. I think Pittsburgh and Cincinnati end up as in that wild card game. In the American League wild card, I mean, you hope Tampa Bay. We're Rays fans. We like Joe Madden and the group over there. You hope that Tampa Bay can hold on, but if they don't, you've got the Yankees just a game back.
Orioles, Cleveland, game and a half back.
Kansas City 2 back. Upton swings and misses. Caminero into his second inning here in the 9th.
So to draw some positives out of this game, Sam Dyson a very good 3 innings, and Caminero has looked sharp.
Anthony Barbaro out in the bullpen. That zips in there for a strike. Justin Upton taken care of. Miami's bullpen has looked sharp in relief of Brian Flynn. MLB.com at bat. It's the #1 source for baseball everywhere you go. iPhone, iPad, Android, BlackBerry 10 at bat delivers Major League Baseball with live audio, pitch tracking, stats, news, highlights, and more. And you want it certainly for the postseason. Text at bat to 31826 or go to Marlins.com for details. Or just go to the App Store.
You know, one of my favorite things about the MLB at bat app is you can go into a game and get the box score, obviously, see the score, but then you can go to highlights, and you know, sometimes you miss some great catches or a big hit, a great play, and you can go get the highlights and you can see it. What did we do before we had the Major League at bat app?
We watched a lot more TV, stayed up later. Over the head of Solano. Man, Freeman has had quite a series, quite a day. 3 for 4. The 2-run homer, that a scorching single, and 7 hits in the series. And the other part of the equation, we're talking about the Braves in the postseason. I said I think Gaddis is a wild card in that if he stays hot, he's a huge plus. The other is Jason Hayward and getting him back and getting him back to where he was when they moved him to the leadoff spot and he started to take off.
Yeah, we talked about Hayward earlier in this series, and you're right. They want to get him back. He was important at the top of the order because he was hitting second, he was hitting leadoff, and it was really helping. That's something they've missed.
Ball and a strike.
That certainly changes things. If Hayward comes back and plays and is in the lineup, it changes a little bit of the complexion for Evan Gaddis, depending on what they do with B.J. Upton.
I think you see Hayward in center and Gaddis in left.
I would agree. And then if they get all the way to the World Series in the American League City, you get Gaddis DHing.
Two balls, 2 strikes, and an out. And Freddie Freeman at first. And Gaddis swings and misses. Brings up Chris Johnson.
That's just flat out heat against some power. Good fastball by Caminero. So, all right, here it is.
Chris Johnson's had a productive day. Three hits, couple doubles.
has his average up to 331. Against the Marlins this year, 403. And that's in 19 games.
Wow. Another line drive. Coghlan dives, and he got it. Chris Coghlan robbing Chris Johnson of a hit. And that finishes the top of the ninth. And continue their march towards home field advantage in the National League postseason. Paul Janisch, good glove man, comes into the ball game. He's at third base. Anthony Barbaro on for Atlanta. Barbaro's been a nice part of the bullpen this year, kind of bridging the gap from starters to that dominant back end. Craig Kimbrell, Logan Morrison, Ed Lucas, and Adeiny Echeverria.
Boy, quite a contrast, Rich, in the job of Dyson and Caminero. Combined, they went 5 innings, gave up just 3 hits, no runs, no walks, and 5 strikeouts. So job well done there.
Morrison's chopper, Freeman going away from it, makes a nice play. He gets the out at first. It's another thing that Freeman does well. He's good around the bag, has terrific feet. I was reading an article where scouts feel that he's underappreciated at first base.
I remember when he first got to the big leagues, one of the first things I heard about him is that hey, and you'll like the way he plays first base too.
Lucas pulls the ball foul. So the afternoon games wrapping up. Oakland continues to beat Minnesota 6-0. And so the A's are going to have Lots of momentum and an even bigger lead when they get to Texas tomorrow. Lucas swings and misses and almost falls over.
Sometimes the guy swings and misses and falls over because he takes like this violent, over excessive rip. That was a case of Ed swung on a pitch, a breaking ball that he thought was going to be a little more out over the plate. It stayed inside, and he kind of ties himself up and then lost his balance.
Jake Marisnick will get an at-bat. And Marisnick takes a strike. Miami down to their last out here in the bottom of the ninth. In a game that was decided early with the wildness of rookie Brian Flynn making his second major league start. He walked 6. Ended up giving up 6 runs. Chris Johnson, 2-run double. Evan Gattis, 2-run double. Freddie Freeman, 2-run homer. And that's it. And that is it as well. Marisnick goes down. Barbaro pumps across a fastball, and Atlanta has win number 88 on the season. 6-1 the final. The Braves win it.